Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is your weekly dose of Geek Tavern Radio. So come on in and join us here this week for this podcast. And as always, I am Dax, and I am always joined with
Shill,
MikeBundy,
and Dax. We have a fourth.
I know, and this is unusual. I mean, a couple weeks ago we had
Corey from CC Gaming.
Corey from CC Gaming. I wanted to call him CC Gaming, but we had Corey.
2 months ago we had Adrian.
Yeah. Now, and this week
we have a good friend of ours, an expert on the Sega Dreamcast, Mike Mohnacky.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Mike, introduce yourself.
My name is Mike Mohnacky, and I am working in the mental health field. I actually employed two of these guys at one point or another.
Good times.
And, my gaming experience started with the Atari, because I'm old. And I had that forever. I even had the second version, the smaller version, and I had the second console for just for Pong. And I had a ton of Atari games, and then eventually graduated to the NES and had that forever and ever and ever. And I didn't get any of the next generations of the NES and went right to Dreamcast. And then after that, I got into the Xboxes, and that's been my favorite consoles since then. I've had them all so far. I've got the one. Don't know if I'll get the 1S, 1X, 1XS, 1.
Yeah, whatever that thing is called.
That is. But
that makes no difference either.
But for Xbox, like my favorite games are, I love third-person shooters. Gears of War is like my Bible. I love those games. I play them over and over. All the Halos are fantastic, of course, and those are really the major ones. Yeah, Dreamcast was a cool system, and I guess we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mohnacky,
Yes.
First question, what's the best Halo?
Best Halo 3, absolutely, hands down, is Halo 3, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, God.
No, I will tell you why. So like the first two, of course, the first one was kind of groundbreaking high. And that, what all first person shooters were based on. 2 was like, hey, we can do more stuff now. Let's pack in some more stuff. But 3 was, in my opinion, was the only one of the games where it was at its peak. Yeah. And it just did everything perfect. And the Halos that came afterwards, they want to do more things, more multiplayer and, different weapons and different things, but they were all kind of branching off, trying to find new things to do. 3 was the only one that was at its maximum. Everything that made gaming was perfect. The graphics on the 360 was just mind blowing, and I just couldn't find anything wrong with that game. And I actually went back and played through it here not too long ago, and just it grabs you and pulls you in. The storyline's great. You love the characters, and I went back and played ODST here recently too. That's a great game. I'm not saying any other games are bad,
right.
But ODST is fantastic. But again, it's experimenting with different things. I think 3 is the only one that took Master Chief to the top. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll go to that. Storyline wise, it was definitely the peak of the entire franchise. Multiplayer, we had, Bundy, Owen, and I, we have countless hours playing that.
We used to stay up till 4:00 in the morning.
System Lincoln.
Yeah.
System Lincoln. It was really a blast. So I'll agree with you on that one. 2's my personal favorite because of the way that they expanded the story from 1, and you had the dual wield needle. The best part of that.
I know, but you couldn't get beat.
I know.
You had to dual, and I like the Brute plasma rifles, the red ones.
Yeah.
You get a pair of those, and you can just wipe out anything that's in front of you.
Yep, that's true.
And needlers, I know you didn't have a whole lot of ammo, but while you had it,
you were invincible. You were a god.
Away. That's why they had the hammer guy with the shield and stuff, because he'd be too easy to kill.
Yeah.
If we didn't. I don't know, that just made it too easy. I did like the storyline in 2, I really did, but it was just that dual wielding thing was just made it too easy, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah. My judgment, between whether 2 or 3 is better is kind of nixed. Reason being is because of pure nostalgia, and nostalgia, is kind of I'm an absolute sucker for. Halo 2 was based on my experience, probably because I played it a lot more than number 3 was my favorite. And me personally, I enjoyed the multiplayer more. Even though
that's where Xbox Live came in.
Yeah, even though I was getting my ass handed to me, with the kneelers.
I mean, talking nostalgia-wise, one would be my pick because I just had so many good memories. We were in college, and there was like 4 or 5 of us all huddled around a little tiny, 30-inch CRT TV.
Oh yeah,
split 4 ways. And quit watching my screen.
Screen watcher watching a screen.
And now that we're on the subject of like just nostalgia, I mean, in the recent weeks, we have spoke a lot about nostalgia, I believe. I mean, we've had our top 5 lists, and of course,
Absolutely.
You're going to get to your Sega Dreamcast top 5 there, Mohnacky. But in terms of nostalgia, what's a game that you would like to see resurrected or, remastered?
Oh, God, yes. I don't understand why this is. Okay, so way back, I forgot to mention in my bio that I got some PC gaming too. And my heart and soul was in MechWarrior. And, they're just these giant walking tanks with all kinds of guns, and you just blow each other up. And it just made me so hard. And then it went, there were, I think, 4 or 4.5 versions on the PC. And the customization was just ridiculous in it. I mean, you got down to the armor placement on the leg versus armor placement on the arm. It really got into the tiny bits and specs, and heat sinks everywhere, and you could just spend forever. And the controls on it were ridiculous. You used the entire keyboard. You had to have this little thing you put on top of it just to figure out what the heck you're doing. But anyway, when the consoles start coming out, I'm thinking, where's my giant robot? And the first Xbox had 2 MechWarrior games, but they arcaded it. Is that a word?
It is now.
Yeah, and I know you couldn't do all that customization with the controller. I mean, I understand that they had to pare it down a little bit, but they turned it into an arcade game with bosses and stuff. And I was like, no, that's not what it was. But it still felt cool because you were giant robots. And the first, they call it Mech Assault, not Mech Warrior. But the first Mech Assault had a pretty neat like arena game where you and a couple players are in a big arena, and enemy mechs come out of these doors, and after you kill some other, then 2 come out, then 4 come out, and it's a really cool survival thing. So, and then after that, the 360 came out, and they put out Chrome Hounds. That was supposed to be this big amazing mech game with all kinds of customizations, but oh my god, it was dumb. I mean, yeah, there was tons of customizations, but you didn't feel like you were doing it for a reason. And then, of course, you had to purchase parts to customize your mechs. And after that, that's it. I mean, I don't count like the Gundam games in that because they're just giant metal dude. Right? What does a giant robot need with a hand? Why does he need an articulated hand? Like the mechs in MechWarrior and Mech Assault. Their arms were big guns. You didn't need all that stuff. Why does a robot need to pick up a giant rifle when he can just make his arm a rifle? So I didn't really count those as giant mech games. And then what was the big game that came out here not too long ago?
Titanfall. That's what I was going to ask you how you felt about those.
Kind of the same way. It's a Gundam, and if you close your eyes, it's just a big dude. But the mechs and the MechWarrior and Mech Assault and things, they were just these lumbering giant tanks, and it felt clunky and huge, but that was awesome because it was real, and instead of a giant robot that can skate around. I'm like, no, that's hello physics. No, that doesn't work.
Couple months back, I stopped in the VGX here, and they had that Steel Battalion with the crazy.
Oh yeah, I never got to play that, but
they had it in there, and me and my brother were so tempted to grab that. Mm-hmm. It was like $150 though.
Yeah,
and the manual alone, just on how to play, because there's so many buttons. It was like a freaking thick binder.
Oh, there was a whole console that you had put in front of you with levers and joysticks and foot pedals and stuff, and it was insane.
I played Titanfall a little bit, and I've always been I am a sucker for like giant robots, kaiju, or the giant monsters. For instance, like Pacific Rim, which the second one coming out here pretty soon, which I'm absolutely excited for. But Titanfall, I played a little bit of it. I wish this was a game on the Switch. I mean, I played the first one, absolutely loved it. It was something different. I mean, it felt like it hadn't been something, and I could be wrong here, but it felt like it was something that hasn't been done for a long time. And I kind of feel bad for the developers of that game because they made the second one. They handed everything to the consumers, everything that they would ask for the second one to make it better. And hardly anybody actually went out and bought the game.
Well, that's the thing when you flop drastically on an overhyped title, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we see that with Destiny. Destiny 2 didn't do half the numbers the original did, and that's because the original was sold as this amazing first-person shooter, super innovative experience, right? And it wasn't anywhere near what they promised. I think the budget for that game was like $2 million for that game alone. And it wasn't there. It was empty. The original vanilla Destiny, not to mention the story was absolutely terrible, but it was just empty. There was nothing to do. It didn't keep people's interest right off the bat. It wasn't until the DLC started coming out that people really dove into it. And then they paid for that with sales of Destiny 2. Yeah. Even though Destiny 2 is leaps and bounds better than the first one.
Yeah, I'm hoping that like people, I don't know, kind of come back around on Destiny 2. Because like nobody's playing it,
right?
Yeah,
well, even there's no content. Once you do everything, you're just done. Yeah, there's no reason to play it again. And I think Bungie did that intentionally. I think they wanted people to take a break from it so that they could work a little harder and remember why they loved it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Staying on the topic of a set not doing as well or a game not doing as well as its predecessor. I mean, this is more so a topic for you and I, Shill, and I don't mean to cut both the mics out of this. Sorry, Mohnacky. Sorry, Bundy. But Magic 25 is going to be released. And I mean, the big predecessor set to this, of course, was the iconic Masters Shill. And I mean, I'm somebody who actually hands-on played multiple games of Draft, and it was fun. It was great. However, the overall value wasn't there when it came to the iconic Master set. Now we have Magic 25. We have Magic the Gathering celebrating its 25th year.
Right.
Didn't Pokemon just celebrate its 25th year?
No, 21st.
21st.
Well, this year's the 21st.
Yeah.
So yeah, Magic came out in 93. And this set is billed as some of the greatest cards that have ever been printed in the history of Magic the Gathering. There's stuff in there like Jace the Mind Sculptor. There's Vendilion Click. There's both versions of a Chroma. There are some really awesome reprints from the set. And as someone who's not super engaged in drafting the modern or even Legacy or anything like that, and I'm just in EDH, I was really excited to see what I could add, maybe buy one copy of and add to my deck. But I got to say, man, I'm really disappointed in Magic 25.
Yeah, I mean, so am I. It started off real good with some of these previews. I mean, you had Jace the Mind Sculptor, of course.
Third reprint, though, in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Because it got a promo reprint, and then it got the Iconic Masters, and then it got Modern Masters. And
things like Doomsday, Master of the Wild Hunt, Vidillion Click, which is, of course, a big modern staple, and new art, I believe, Phyrexian Obliterator. I mean, there are a great amount of cards, of course, that I think one of the most unique things, I think one of the things that they actually capitalized on for the Magic the Gathering fan, the consumer, is the fact that each of these cards has a watermark of the set that it was originally released in. And I think that's great. I think that's cool. I think in terms of, pushing it out there and making it attractive, to us, the fans, I think they did a really great job, especially with some of this new art,
Right.
Red Elemental Blast, some of these really old
Yeah, the
cards
Elemental Blast, the art on those are absolutely beautiful. I want to pick up a copy of each, and I don't even run them in my EDH. I just want to kind of have them in my collection. Something to look at, like, oh man, yeah, that art is gorgeous. But yeah, what's your favorite card that you're most excited for out of the set?
To be honest, I kind of hope, on the few drafts, hopefully that I'm able to play. I hope I pull an Animar Soul of Elements.
Okay.
I really like to play Animar as a general in EDH. But, besides that, that's the thing. There's really not too much going on with this set. And I'm afraid, we spoke about Destiny 2 and, it not doing great. Like, there's just these companies that go and, they go to push out the next product, the next big thing, and they try to hype it, but it just falls short. And I'm afraid this, in fact, is going to be something that's going to follow the footsteps of Iconic Masters. Unfortunately, Iconic Masters didn't do so hot because, again, I don't know. There's so many complicated things. There's a reserved list. There's this list over here in terms of
factor.
Yeah, that determines on whether or not Wizards of the Coast wants to reprint this card and whatnot. There's very few select cards. For yourself, what are you looking at?
The thing that I'm most excited for out of Magic 25 is the reprint of Squadron Hawk.
Oh, wow.
That was supposed to be funny. That was
yeah. Oh, wow.
I've been falling short, but it's not working. No, but the card that I'm most excited for out of that is probably Doomsday. I do want to pick up a copy of Doomsday. I don't have one. I think it would be great to have an EDH deck.
It'd be great to have 4 of them in an EDH deck.
Can have only one.
There can only be one. Do you think $10 a pack is too much?
$10 a pack is way too much.
Yeah, $10. It's
$10 a pack is far too much money. I think that that's going to drive players away because who wants to jump into a draft at $50, to get 45 cards or whatever draft deck? Yeah, I don't think people are going to go crazy over this because there isn't much in it that hasn't been reprinted lately, with the exception of Doomsday, Vendilion Click, and maybe some of the lands from the set. But I don't see folks paying $10 to draft the set when they could just buy single in the secondary market once all of these packs are open and traded.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to help the modern format a lot, though. I genuinely think.
Yeah, well, see, that's a big question, too. Does this right here, the release of this set, does this make some of these cards here, eligible to be in Modern?
I don't believe so.
No.
Just
the other two.
This is like from the vault type of set that's being printed.
I see.
Yeah. So these cards won't be Modern legal. It won't affect. Some of them are Modern, right? Like Vendilion Click and Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think the Achromas, those are all legal in Modern, but I think this is going to help the secondary market and the 88 players more.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll just be able to cherry pick the cards that they want. For me, myself, if this drops Animar down to I think Animar goes for like $40. So if Animar could drop down to 15, I think that's wishful thinking. But if it were to happen, I could see myself I could see 25 being a safe one, dropping it almost by half.
For a single piece of cardboard.
That's right.
$25 for a single piece of cardboard.
And that's why I don't play anymore.
Yeah, Mohnacky, are you still there with us?
Yes, I am here.
How do you feel about someone paying $25 for a 3.5 inch by 2 inch piece of cardboard?
Well, obviously it means more than card that it's posted on.
Right.
If you love the game and you really want to get into it, then more people are gonna go into debt and sell their children.
Yeah.
To go into debt. What are you talking about?
Did you?
But I've seen. To me, it sounds ridiculous. But how is that any different from us? When we get a new console every couple of years and spend $60 in a game that's going to depreciate in a month.
Speaking about whether it was worth it or not, it's over a year now since the Switch anniversary.
Today is day 366.
So yesterday was the 1 year anniversary.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my answer is yes.
Mohnacky, are
so
you
biased.
switching?
I don't own one, but Phil's brought his over quite a few times. I was over playing it last night. I'm not real impressed. I mean, I know that's God's gonna strike me down. I know, but I hate the controllers. Like I was playing Mario Kart on those little tiny things that are the size of my finger. Come on,
the sideways, the Joy-Cons.
And why? Why do you have 5 different types of controllers for one system? Let's decide on one. I mean,
money,
all these configurations and things. Well, yeah, but wouldn't that deter some people from buying it?
You think it would?
Like I was playing Mario Kart with Shill last night, and on those little, what do they call the little things there?
The Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
And
there was a button on the side that I kept on bumping with the butt of my thumb, and I'm like, how else am I supposed to do this?
Yeah, when you turn it sideways, the Joy-Cons, when you're using them sideways,
but what is that? Button. What is that Pro controller that you had me use a few times?
Yeah.
I really like that. I mean, that worked really well.
Oh, that's the best controller ever made.
Well, then why would they have anything else but that?
For games that they're going to make in the future, I mean,
well, there's a ton of stuff out now too, though, right? They want tabletop mode to be successful, right? Yeah. And it actually, when it initially released, we all saw those commercials where people were playing at a party at tabletop mode, and we were like, nobody's ever going to play that stupid. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to use that dumb kickstand that falls off. Nobody's going to take the Joy-Cons off and hand them to somebody else. But I've done it. I was actually surprised that someone played Mario Kart that way with. I did it at community days last year. I had a couple kids that were helping out in the church tent volunteering at, and they were super engaged in playing it in tabletop because you could play Mario Kart right there and everything. Played with some of the kids at Friday nights. I played with them that way. I'm surprised that I actually used it.
How is this anything new, though? I mean,
I agree.
Game Boy, you could link systems, couldn't you?
Yes. With wires and cables.
This is nothing new.
It's not.
And I know
nothing's ever new.
You expect better and better things from better consoles and better resolution, graphics, better this. But you got all this power and all these graphics things to play Mario.
Yes.
What sense does it have this ultra high def 4K UDH capability? How much clearer can you see a cartoon?
Right.
It's just colors.
Well, the Switch is capable of all those things, right? Well, it doesn't do 4K yet, and we think there's going to be an add-on down the line for that.
You get my point, though.
Right. Nintendo's never cared about that. They care about the quality of their game, whether or not it's fun to play. So they don't do that. They do that just for third party, right? Because if the third party developers don't jump on board with their console, they're not going to make money because they're not going to console. And if you can't play Call of Duty, Doom, whatever is the latest and greatest game that's coming out,
I'm anxious
nobody's going to buy.
I'm anxious to see what that's going to look like on the Switch. Doom and Wolfenstein, is that coming out on
Wolfenstein's supposed to?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's coming.
Number 2.
I'm anxious to see what that's going to look like on it. I hope it's not like all cartoonized and things.
No.
Doom looks great.
I have Doom on the Nintendo Switch, and it runs great. Is it downgraded in terms of detail when it's compared to the PS4 or the Xbox One version? Absolutely.
Detail wise, I don't think. Because when I was playing it, it didn't look much different compared to the Xbox One version. The biggest difference was that it's locked at 30 frames a second versus 60.
Which difference?
It is. It is a huge difference when you are tuned to playing games at 60 frames. Yeah. But when you're playing at 30, it doesn't really make a huge difference when you're actually
if you play it back to back, I'm sure you would notice.
You would notice the difference, definitely.
But I haven't played Doom in a long time. So if I just popped it in on the Switch, I'm sure I wouldn't even think anything of it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I see, and that's what made it so perfect for me was the fact that I didn't play the other Dooms, the Xbox One or the PS4 version. So going into this one, it was something that still felt new. I mean, I watched videos on YouTube of people comparing, frame rate and detail, graphic wise and everything. Again, graphics really doesn't bother me. It didn't bother me. I remember even on the first night that I was playing that game, I decided to do the online play online multiplayer, which is something that in the past, Nintendo, it was never their strong suit. But even just for the first night, it ran perfect. Even multiplayer online.
Right.
No voice chat or anything, but it was
that's
fluid.
the biggest hurdle system.
Yeah. I think going back on,
this is the upside.
It's portable. You can take it anywhere you want to with you.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Nintendo's. It's Nintendo's herpes. Pretty much. They planned out that they were going to make this portable console something that has. Granted, you have the Game Boy, but this is something, of course, as we all know, and I know I'm just a broken record, and everybody knows this by now, but it is the hybrid console.
What they've always wanted.
What they've always wanted. But however, Mohnackie, you talked about how like the Game Boy, and for somebody who didn't have it, someone could, just hand it over and they could try it out. But the thing is too, is that you really don't share that same game at the same time. And a lot of people do complain about the Joy-Cons. And yes, they have made more accessories so that fits better and actually fills in, someone's hands because, they are pretty tiny.
Right.
But for someone to go and take it again, for them to succeed, they want it to be used more as a tabletop. Why? Because it will spread like a virus.
Well, it has. It's already the fastest. It's beat the Wii, right? The Wii was the fastest selling console in history. It sold 1 million units in like the first 6 months. The Wii beat it.
How many Wii consoles do people have sitting in their closet somewhere?
I know.
I
know.
Well, it's a third best selling console, and then PS4, and then
did PS4 beat Wii? When it comes to total numbers over the lifespan of the console, PS4 is far beyond, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about time span now.
Yeah.
Like how hot it was when it came out.
I think within a year, PS4 actually outsold the Wii in terms of, the number of units sold within a year.
Okay. I'm positive that the Switch beat that.
Oh, the Switch did. The Switch did. It beat it by a little. I want to say it's definitely within 3 million.
Okay.
The difference, but yeah, it definitely overcame the PS4.
I want to say that Nintendo was shooting for 10 million in the first year, and they beat that.
Yeah, but I
want to go
back.
The production problem.
Yeah, I want to go back to the tabletop thing because virtually, this is the big selling point for Nintendo. No console, of course, can do anything like it. The fact that you can take the control, because let's be honest, to take a screen with you, plop it down, and then to take out an the Pro controller, to me, I think would be a little bit of a pain in the ass, but to have this console where the controllers themselves, you have all that you need. Everything that you need right then and there out of these two, this one controller that essentially separates into two, and then to hand it to somebody else and then actually play alongside with them rather than handing a Game Boy over saying, hey, try it out and whatnot,
So I think the coolest thing about some of the Switch is that you that with the console comes with, particularly with, so like you can play Mario Kart right out of the box. You don't have to go out and buy a $60, $80, $70 controller, whatever it is, buy a set of Joy-Con.
Yeah.
As soon as you do the thing. I think that's what for is affordability out of the box for family. Okay, so right. Switch is worth the money. It's a great console, and I like it a lot.
Lame.
End of discussion.
Nice.
This is the last question that needs to be asked about the Switch and its anniversary. Obviously, this Nintendo Switch had a very, very strong year. Matter of fact, a lot of third-party developers have decided that they are going to hop aboard the Nintendo Switch train. It's outselling, it's breaking records. But do we see them having as strong of a second year as the first year?
Yes. You know why? Because they're going to have the greatest E3 of all time, because they're going to show footage from a Pokemon game, they're going to show footage from an Animal Crossing, and they're going to show footage for Smash Brothers, and they're all going to come out by the end of the actually think
Pokemon's not coming.
I know, I agree. I'm in that.
What about Mario Maker?
Right, Mario Maker as well.
We need it.
There's a lot coming. We do. We need a 2D Mario,
so
man.
Fun.
Nintendo does not need to keep making these first party their own titled ports. They just stop. I don't mind if it's a third party, especially if it's something that I haven't.
Well, yeah, because the third party developers get money, keep coming to them.
You know what they need to do? They need to. I mean, there's Dragon Quest, builders, which from what I understand, it's a pretty cool game, and I think it's only $40, maybe $50 rather than the $60 price range. But it would be cool to actually make like a Zelda maker.
Yeah, like the original 2D format where you could jump from
why not do that? Why not do something different?
Yeah, I would love to see. Yeah, they played around with the idea.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Bundy stopping in the middle of the episode here. There were some audio issues, and you're going to notice that we skip right into the top 5 Dreamcast games from Mike Mohnacky.
And we are speaking about a console. I would have to say probably one of, if not maybe the first, I want to say, unorthodox game system. And matter of fact, that's why we have, Mohnacky with us today. Mohnacky.
He's the expert.
He is the expert. You are the expert, I hear, on the Sega Dreamcast.
He is the Dreamcast.
Oh, yeah. So it was a great console, but we were talking earlier about just how horribly it was managed by Sega, and going back in the day in the late '80s or mid to late '80s, console wars, consoles coming out all over the place, and Sega was doing their absolute best to put out as many consoles and to keep up with the Joneses. They went from their one system to the Master System to the Genesis to the Game Gear. Well, that was a handheld,
right? But that was
to the Sega CD to the
Sega Saturn.
We're not even there yet.
Wow!
And then they put out an adapter for that called the 32X.
Yeah.
That was keeping up with some of the other ones. And then you got the Saturn. I think it had an add-on as well. So they were just cranking them out so fast. I mean, it was so fast you couldn't get used to what you had before the next best thing was coming out. And they got really stupid with it. But anyway, with the add-ons, especially with what was the last one, the Saturn or the Genesis. But anyway, they had it was a pretty expensive console. And then to get as good graphics as some of the other ones, they had another add-on. So you had to buy expensive console and add-on to get what some of the newer ones coming out with. So to, I guess, fix all of that, they came out with their biggest console, the console to end all consoles. And that was the Sega Dreamcast. And it was superior. It really was. In just about any way you can think of. It had a built-in 28K modem. It had graphics that were astounding. The games themselves were absolutely fantastic. Shenmue, I think I just saw the other night, they spent millions of dollars back in 1980 or 1999 to just to make that game. So they really put all their eggs in one bunch with that. And I mean, the playability of it was the controls. I really like the controller. It reminds me of the current Xbox controller minus the right stick. Right. So you had triggers there, you had a left stick, and you had your 4 buttons pretty much in the same configuration as the Xbox is. Plus, you had all these cool memory features. They could buy memory cards to put in it to store a bunch of games and all your saves. And it was really instant. And the memory cards went in the controller.
Right. I thought that was a cool feature.
And it's quick too. I just did this the other night because I still have it. I took one of my memory packs and plugged it in, and beep. I mean, as soon as I plugged it in, boom, right there it was. And all my save stuff was on there. But it took even that they took further. So the game, the save packs themselves, you could do mini games on that.
Right.
Which I thought was really cool.
They had like a virtual console thing on there too, I think, right? Where you could play like the original Sega game through those memory card pack.
I think
things.
so. And also they had vibration packs. So each controller you could put 2 memory packs in, and if you had the vibration thing, you could that would be one slot, and then your memory slot in the other one. So it was just a great console. It had some of the same problems as like PS1 with game reading. You put in a disc and it'd whir for a little bit, and it would kind of halfway come up, and you have to open up the door and close it to get it to load right. It would do that every while, and if the game wasn't in like really perfect condition, you'd have some with that loading up too, and maybe every once in a while it would freeze all the way halfway through. But
that was a problem across the whole generation of consoles.
But as a whole, man, it was solid, and I think one of the biggest drawbacks, in my opinion. So I'll get to my 5 list here of games, but a great game for that was Skies of Arcadia, which was a really good RPG, and I think RPG, which a lot of RPGs are based on. But so there were parts of it where you were flying around or walking around somewhere, and kind of like Pokemon, like if you're in the grass and you would randomly come across a Pokemon and you go into like a battle scene.
Yeah.
It was like that, but so the motor inside the Dreamcast that moves the laser around was really loud. So right before you would come across a random monster to kill, you would hear and then your screen would you found something random. So you knew something was going to happen if you heard that
foreshadowing.
If you heard that motor go and then something would happen.
So I don't have a whole lot of experience with games from this console. So before you jump into your top 5, I want to touch on games that I played for it. There's only 2. So the first was Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's where that whole series, I believe, debuted. Was on the Sega Dreamcast. It was great to see Captain America go fight like Mega Man or something. The Tekken fighters, I think, were all in that game as well. You could like fight Ryu and stuff. Great game. I was never good at it at all. And then the only other one,
games.
Yeah, I could never get the combos down.
Yeah,
but back to the console though, I didn't finish the part on how it died.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So I think a whopping year after it came out, the PS2 came out, and it wasn't like any big surprise. It wasn't like Sony was guarding this. Everybody knew it was coming out, but they put out the Dreamcast a year before, and PS2 came out and just wiped it out, and it did not stand a chance against that. And it was horrible marketing. The timing was ridiculous, and it's such a shame too. If they would have timed it better and maybe waited a little bit instead of putting out all these other consoles one after another, and saved up for their resources to get to that Dreamcast, had that out for a couple years, man, that would have been a good time for them.
If the Dreamcast would have came out at the same time as the PS1, maybe it would have probably sold better.
Oh, absolutely.
With the internet capability and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was really impressive. I don't even think the PS2 that didn't have an internal modem, did it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did it really?
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can play online.
Well, you had to go through someone else's modem. You couldn't just plug it into the wall.
Oh no, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's what so and all I forgot about the add-ons and things to the Dreamcast. Not even apart from the controllers and the memory slots and things. But you had a gun. You could get several types of guns, and the shooting games were really cool on that. I mean, better than you remember Duck Hunt and stuff,
right?
But you had a controller built on to the gun, so you could shoot it and do gameplay with it. I tried to plug it in here the other night, and it does not work with smart TVs and things, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, but you could get it had a browser. It had an internet browser. You could browse the internet on your Dreamcast, and then you could plug in a full size keyboard to it and surf the net. And yeah, it was just
innovative.
It was the coolest console ever. Well, not ever, but for its time, I really enjoyed it. But yeah, game wise, the games were really solid. Gonna say about your other?
The other game. So the other game that I played for the console was the only other one, was Sonic Adventure 2. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, a lot of fans look at that game as the beginning of the death of the franchise.
Yeah, I liked it.
I did too. I thought it was a great game. I thought it had a good story. You jumped back and forth between that that good character and that evil character. It told that kind of Halo 2-esque story where you were getting both sides of it. And I thought it was really good. I didn't think Shadow was a terrible character at that point. I think the more that they pushed him to try to make him an anti-hero mascot of the series, that did start to weigh down on them. Shadow the Hedgehog for the GameCube PS2 era type of those games were just, it's the worst game ever made. It's worse than E.T. It's worse than E.T. So it might not be quite, but yeah, that's my only experience with Dreamcast. Bundy, what about you? Do you have anything that you played on that console?
My only experience with it is I remember like they had one set up at Kmart, and I played some Sonic. It must have been Sonic Adventure, maybe.
Yep,
okay,
correct.
And that's about it. Like, I don't know if it's worth it because stuff's really hard to find. I've always wanted to buy one to at least experience, playing a game on it. And Mike, I didn't know you had one, so maybe I'll have to come over and play it.
I had it in a drawer for the longest time, and I got a new smart TV, and I had to perch it up on something, so I got some shelves, and I was like, well, that's a perfect place to put my Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was playing it the other night. Great.
Yeah, I would like to, just experience the controller, if nothing else, I guess.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Oh, it's got a D-pad too. I forgot to tell you it has a
it does.
like the one does.
Dax, what about you? Do you have any games that you played on the Dreamcast at all?
The closest I ever got was to a Dreamcast was my brother Jim. He actually had one while he lived in Maryland, and I remember, man, we in a span of maybe I think he lived down there for maybe 3.5 years. And the number of times that we went down there, he actually only let me play that thing once. The number of times we would do a solid 3.5-hour drive down there. And, I would more so, because, I was told to never be a nibshit or, don't be a moocher growing up. But he actually let me play it once, and I actually played Code Veronica, Resident Evil, on it. So, I mean, I was really young at the time, but I will say this, the system itself was very attractive. At that time, and I know it was before the PS2 when I played it. The PS2 wasn't even a thing yet, but I just remember seeing I think he had that. I think he had, he did have that. He had WWF Attitude. He also had House of the Dead, one of the House of the Dead games.
That's what I had with the gun.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was a blast. And
I'm trying to think. He had an NFL game. I know he had an NFL game. Matter of fact, he would tell me that him and his friends, the first time I ever heard of something called a LAN party, which, I guess like his friends would just bring, a lot of his friends would come over, and he would have one of these big, huge apartment condo places where it had like 4 or 5 bedrooms, and he had 4 or 5 other of his friends, who would be they would be all living together, and they would invite all their friends over, and they would have big, huge tournaments playing this NFL game on this console. But yeah, I really don't have too much experience except, for, I did play a little bit of House of the Dead, 1 or 2. I have no clue.
Well, especially with I'm glad you mentioned House of the Dead, because one of the biggest things that Dreamcast wanted to do is they wanted to bring the arcade, which was still a thing then, into your home, and nothing did it better than House of the Dead. It looked exactly like the arcade, and even with like the flashing things, player 1, player 2, and all those things, cool. And the continue stuff was exactly like the arcade. The graphics were absolutely perfect because you would have that's one of the reasons everybody wanted to go to the arcade, because the graphics and everything, and then the play was so much better than like the Atari that was so boxy and pixelated and things. And you go to the arcade, and I was like, oh, and everything was bright and shiny and lights everywhere, and now you had that in your home, and it did so very.
Crazy Taxi was another big title I remember.
Oh, yeah.
But I think
that's on my list.
Yeah. Oh, a matter of fact, speaking of the list, I don't want to carry on too long. Get to your top 5.
Yeah, I'll do it, man. Mike Mohnacky's top 5 Dreamcast games. Number 1. No, number 5. Okay, yeah, that'd be stupid to start with number 1. Okay, my number 5, I'm going to start out with Crazy Taxi. The physics of it, well, I'll tell you what it's about. So you are a taxi, and you can choose several different kinds of taxis, and you go out and find somebody to pick up, and you take them where they need to go.
Right.
And during your trip, you can do cool tricks and find little jumps to do, and every time you do that, you get tips. And you also have a time limit to get a person there, so you have a round of this much time, and you have to get as many fares in that time frame. The physics in it were pretty odd. It didn't really react very well to physics, in my opinion, but the fun outweighed that, and smashing into other things and getting into crashes. And I always liked the bike. There was one that was a bike that had a trailer attached to the back, but graphic wise, meh. But that's not really what it was all about. It was about racing around and having tons of fun, and it did that fan. And I can't remember now. I didn't play it the other night. I think it may be cell shade. And that was another thing that the Dreamcast did that no one else was doing at that time, was a lot of cell shading. It wasn't Crazy Taxi. It was something else. That there was another game where the main character was on like roller skates and you were painting graffiti.
Jet Set Radio.
Yeah. So that was cell shaded, and there was like no one else was doing that. So
the art styles for those hold up really well.
They do. And the movements and all that did really good. So Crazy Taxi, number 5. Number 4. Yes.
That was actually free on Xbox like last month, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah. I picked it up. I've never played it, so I'll have to turn that on.
So my number 4 is a racing game called Test Drive 6.
Oh,
and I played this forever and ever and ever. So you get different cars, and you can customize them slightly. It was basically you could change some colors, I think, and you can make them like really shiny or not shiny. But other than that, that was pretty much it for the customization. But the racing part of it was so fun, and these cars were basically indestructible. You go 200 miles an hour into the side of a wall, and you're good to go. Just back up. So, but that was just so fun. I like the physics in it. Besides, indestructible cars. The tracks were fantastic. It really boasted the soundtrack for this game. It had all these kind of techno-y, electronic-y songs, as opposed to some of the more cheesier soundtracks that you get on some other games. And this was like stuff you would hear on the radio. So that did a really good job of that. We also ever played Test Drive.
I think it did. Were those cross-platform?
Yeah,
I think they were on PlayStation.
I played number 5 a lot on PS1.
Yeah, my dad really liked this game, so we had several.
My number 3 is legendary, in my opinion. Phantasy Star Online. I think this was, if not the first, but the first that did it well, MMORPG, and it really was massive. And I'm not a big Destiny fan, but when Shill brought it over here, it reminded me of Phantasy Star Online. You had this massive area to find missions to go on, and you saw all these other players that were actually there that you could interact with and do a lot of things with.
On the Dreamcast.
On the Dreamcast. Way back in the day.
That's phenomenal.
It was a mix of RPG elements and action. So like Destiny, when you encounter an enemy, you don't go to that cut screen and your opponents are sitting there vibrating back and forth while you decide on what attack to use. No, if you had a sword or a staff or something, you were actually fighting. But endless amounts of content on that. I couldn't get through it all on the years that I've had it, and of course since then all the servers are gone. And I did hear, I'm not sure how long ago, but they were trying to rebirth those servers in some way or shape or form so you can actually play that again. But like some of the RPGs that you have now, you can pick your guild. They call them guilds, and your magic users or your balanced player or your warrior type people. And it was just a fantastic game. There's so much to it, I can barely remember it all. But I remember that's a chunk of my college career was sunk in that game. And my number 2 is Soul freaking Calibur.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, the best. I mean, arguably, even to this day, the best fighting game ever. And the thing that this did, it was the fighting.
Whoa.
Shit.
Well, I mean, apparently they disagree. First, you insult the Nintendo Switch, and then you go on to say that, that game is the best fighting game when we all know, in fact, that Smash Brothers is the best game. So, of course, my 3 children are going to be upset.
That's not a fighting game. Smash Brothers is.
It is a fighting game.
It is a fighting game.
It's a button.
My wife agrees.
No way. There is so much competitive.
She agrees.
There's so much competitive community around Melee. Super Smash Brothers Melee to this day is considered the best game of all time.
Nintendo.
Well,
that's what you guys are like.
He's right. He's not lying. He's not.
Well, he's true.
Not wrong.
Anyway, back to my damn list. Soul Calibur. I watched a video the other night just to re-educate myself, even though I've played all of them on all the other consoles, but this is the first one. And it was one of the first ones that their mechanics of it gave weight to their weapons and their kicks in the legs and things, whereas some of the other games, like there was a really good fighting game also for the Dreamcast, maybe for other consoles too, called Virtua Fighter.
Oh yeah,
and that was a really good game, but it just didn't feel. You would hit a button and something would happen, but it just didn't feel. And that's the big thing with Soul Calibur. You could feel when you were swinging a 6-foot long sword that had to weigh like 60 pounds. It didn't do it the instant you touched the button. There was weight to it, and you could feel it. And if you were a bigger character, you didn't move like everybody else. And if you're swinging a giant hammer, it was just more realistic, and it was more or less 3D. I know some people argue with that, but you can move around your opponent instead of, like Mortal Kombat where you're just a side-to-side thing. You can move around, and I think the combos for Soul Calibur they weren't really easy to do, but they were easy to remember, as opposed to some of the other ones where it's like, hold your mouth like this, press 3 buttons at once, and then hit a trigger with your toe. And that's your combo. Soul Calibur had a lot of direction button combo, and that would be some sort of move. It was easy to grab people, and the environment was really good. Some of it was destructible, some was multi-tiered, where you could break through and go to another section sometimes. And the characters in it were fantastic, and they were so varied. There were very few characters who did the same thing, as opposed to like, was it Ryu and the other guy? They all kind of did a lot of the same things. And everybody, there were slight variations on the characters, but in Soul Calibur, there were major variations. And that got a little slimmer as the game went on with different consoles. You had lots of different characters who had the exact same skill set, but in the first one, definitely.
Valdo is my man.
Valdo's insane. Mine was Mitsurugi. You cannot beat me with Mitsurugi. I am an asshole with Mitsurugi. Especially in this first game, I found these combos that I could hit you in the air and you wouldn't come down for at least until half your life was down. And I just keep you in the air. And then when you land, I knew how to time it just perfectly. When you landed, I was throwing something else that would hit you while you're on your ground. And I hit you 3 more times when you're on the ground. And as soon as you get up, I do that combo all over again. I was a jerk. I still am. But I think in the later Soul Caliburs, they made that more difficult to do if they took a lot of that away, where I can't keep.
Well, that's touching on Smash Brothers again. I have seen competitive players have whole matches in the air. They will edge guard, which is just keeping somebody from landing back on the stage, so well that these players begin to move their entire character base like underneath the stage, and they're having a whole battle underneath in the air. And I'm like, how do you do that? And it's just learning the game and learning your combos and learning how to execute them properly.
And number 1,
drum roll,
please. Skies of Arcadia. I mentioned this earlier. this was my real introduction to RPGs, and it's in that style where, like I said, there's probably a name for it. I don't remember what it is, but when you run across an enemy, you're standing there rocking back and forth as you pick moves.
Mm-hmm. Turn-based RPG.
Thank you. That's what it's.
Mm-hmm.
But I love this game. It had a great storyline. You had these factions that basically lived in the sky after the planet has been pretty much wiped out by presumably some sort of catastrophic war. But the land masses and islands and things are levitated in the air by these moonstones, and that's how you float around. So it's like air pirates is what the main faction is called that you play. The Blue Rogues, they're air pirates, and they go around and they steal from rich people. And one of the factions was the main armada, the big baddies. They had all the best ships and all the best weaponry, and they would go and raid them and steal their stuff. And so you run across you and your I can't remember now. I don't think it was a relation, but you were the main character, and you run around with a girl who's like your bestie, your friend zoned, I guess. I don't know. But they run around and they run across a ship that they take over and find this lady who they've never stand. But all these moonstones, it revolves around that. So there's green and yellow and red and purple and silver, and they all do different things. So as you're doing gameplay, you can charge your weapons with different moonstones and do different moves. As you do more fights, you can do super moves, people who can heal and protect and all that stuff. But so then they throw this kind of elemental thing in here, and as you're going through the storyline, you fight these giant megas. I can't remember the name. But anyway, these giant monsters that are elemental based. Plant one, fire one, and those battles are just amazing. And then there's a lot of times where you get out of the ship and you're going across these landscapes and finding clues and finding cool things. And there really wasn't, you can farm quite a bit in it to get your level up to make battles easier and jump in your ship and go around and just run into things to kill. But you run into more characters who add more depth to the storyline. And it's a long game too. It takes you forever to beat it. But apart from when I mentioned earlier about the motor on the laser that tips you off when something's gonna pop up, apart from that, pretty much. And that's my number one. I have one kind of honorable mention. I love this game for a long time. It's called Slave Zero. And a very loose storyline about this faction that's taken over a city, and they're making these biomechanical giant robots to take over, and these rebellious people get one and make it a good guy, and you are this big robot. I had a blast with it. You can carry 2 weapons, and you have a rocket launcher on your shoulder and a jetpack and stuff. I remember having a blast. The reason I didn't put it on my top 5, though, is I plugged it in the other night and tried to play it. God, the controls are awful.
Yeah, didn't hold up.
So bad. So you had, I think, 6 different button schemes that you can choose from, but there's only one button scheme that actually uses everything that you need. So if you switch, dumb. If you switch to a different button scheme, then you can't switch weapons. If you switch to another one, then you can't jump. And so there's only one that you can actually use. And what made it kind of unplayable for me is the axis is switched, and you can't unswitch it.
Oh.
So you can't walk forward with this button. So to walk forward, you had to push the top, the B button, and the back is the A button, and look around with your left. So you had to move in really weird ways, and then just remind yourself up is not down, down is not up.
This is before first-person shooters really made their way onto consoles.
This was a third person.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, it was a third person.
Okay.
But I remember, I have fond memories of that game, but trying to do it now after being an Xbox fan, I couldn't. But anyway, that's my Dreamcast.
Hurrah! Well, thanks for sharing. Wow. Yeah, it's great to have somebody on that experience with the console, because I was a PlayStation 2 guy. I had an uncountable for that console. And that's where I went. It's probably part of the reason that your favorite console died.
Yeah. I ain't mad.
Well, that's good knowing that, right?
Right.
Oh, boy. Anyhow, Mohnacky,
Yes.
It was an absolute pleasure. I don't think if I, actually said anything right there, leading us to eventually get into the end of this episode, I don't think we would shut up.
Right.
Mohnacky, I don't know you, man, but you absolutely fit in. I can see why Shill and Bundy love a man such as yourself.
Oh,
yeah. It's a homoerotic kind of love.
Penis.
It's a homoerotic kind of love.
Absolutely.
I've shared a bed.
Guys, my wedding is going to be really fun.
Leaning towards the end of the show. Where was I going with it?
The end of the show.
The end of the show. The thing that you do that's the same every single time we do it.
So, going into the outro, Mohnacky, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You being our third guest and all. It is just, like Shill said, it's just really good to have someone else, somebody different on the show, especially when they've experienced, a Sega Dreamcast or, anything that's out of the realm of what we may have actually experienced ourselves. But, I wouldn't mind having you on the show again,
I'll do it again. Yeah, that's cool. I had a blast.
Oh, yeah. And it sounds like Shill nor MikeBundy have any objection.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Setup's really sweet.
Yay!
So just like, always what we do here at the end, and I'm going to ask you, Mohnacky, where can they find you?
At my house or at work.
Yeah, he doesn't really have.
No, you can't find me anywhere. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'll be back though.
Yeah. Hey, Dax, where can they find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Dax Hastings. Again, at Dax Hastings.
MikeBundy?
They can find me on the Twitters at MikeBundy316, on Instagram at MikeBundy316, and on YouTube, Mike Space Bundy. How about you, Shill?
You can follow me on Twitter at Shill_DS. We can get on there, have a conversation. We can play some games together. Really into Nintendo stuff. So yeah, jump on there and have that conversation. You can find all of us on Twitter at Geek Tavern. Simple at Geek Tavern. You can email us, geektavernproductions@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your top 5 lists. If you have a Sega Dreamcast list, send it in to us. We can talk about it in the Discord channel as well. The link to that is attached to our Twitter and will be in the show notes so that you can jump in the conversation on Discord as well.
And with that said, that is Shill. I'm about to be a married man someday. That is MikeBundy. I once spent $300 on a special edition of Halo. And that is Big
What
Mike
Mohnacky.
My name is Dax. Thank you for joining in on this episode of Geek Tavern Radio. Everybody, do as you're told. Listen to your parents. And please go out and press start. Keep on gaming.